Welcome, folks, to the Michael Muto show here on Western 102 FM. On the line right now, I have comic book artist, writer of various things which we'll get into for TV, digital video, television, comics, all the stuff. Award-winning writer, written a memoir, graphic novel, Michael Kupperman. Returning guest, Michael Kupperman. Welcome back, Michael, to the show.
It's all over for me, same as everyone else. It's all over.
You're coming back. Last time we spoke just about your book, All the Answers, which was a fantastic book. And I had a lot of questions about that, of course. But this time I thought we'd just kind of go over your whole kind of career in a more succinct way than that makes it sound. Not like we were here for 12 years. No, but because you've done a lot of stuff. So I don't know how much we'll actually be able to get into. But I suppose the one thing I want to, because I suppose the thing you'd probably be best known for is comic book writing and comic book drawing and stuff like that. And you're working on your own comics, things like that. If you look up Michael Kupperman, that's what you're going to see first. So I suppose what I'm going to ask you is the very boring question. What were your favorite comics as a kid?
Well, Asterix and Tintin.
Yeah,
Yeah, pretty
yeah.
much.
Can't beat those.
Um, but I think, yeah, my comics are very odd. I think of myself as an artist who's working in comics, but possibly not a comic artist in the normal sense.
I get you. I get you.
Uh, you know, like a comic artist is supposed to have a style, and everything is done in the
Hmm.
style, and
Yeah.
I'm not really a graphic stylist. For me, the writing is really important, and then
Yeah.
the drawing it's not secondary. Like I'm a serious artist, but it's not.
Hmm.
I'm not a stylist in that way. Like
Yeah.
everything doesn't look the same, and things can vary quite a bit.
It kind of fits the tone of whatever comic you're doing. We should say Michael's
Yeah,
work, if you don't
like I
know
look
it,
at drawing
is
as more of an open-ended adventure. Like you're
Mhm.
going into it and see what the results are.
Yeah.
You know,
Like if you're doing a thing about a Picasso, it's not going to look the same as Snake and Bacon.
right? Right.
Which
Yeah.
I should say as well at the start here, if people don't know Michael's work, it's extremely funny comics. Really often surreal. Like as I was saying, a snake and bacon is a snake and a piece of bacon who solve crimes. And the snake just goes hiss, and the bacon just goes sizzle, and that's it. But yeah. So I suppose Asterix and Tintin. I mean, they're solving crime right there. I mean, that leads into Snake and Bacon.
Tintin is amazing comics.
Yeah,
It really is.
yeah. I think you can get a kind of sense of your kind of drawing style with the backgrounds of Hergé, like the very detailed, but all, I was saying this to you before actually, with your last book, very detailed backgrounds, of course, famous for that, and the very kind of very cartoony then Tintin made it more accessible, I think, his kind of work.
Yeah, well, of course, he had an army of assistants, which
Oh,
must
nice.
have been great
That makes sense.
to fill in that stuff for him. He had different artists who could do different, background textures really well.
Hmm. Yeah. And of course, Asterix, and of course, is a very I never got Asterix as a kid, actually. I remember reading it and enjoying it, but never really got the jokes. I was like, all right, yeah, I guess he's got a funny Latin sounding name. Whatever. Kind of went over my head
Yeah,
as
I
a
haven't revisited
2 year old.
Asterix for years. I don't know how much it would hold up. Uh,
Were you ever interested in things like Mad Magazine and stuff like that?
Not really. I think
No?
Mad was slightly past its heyday
All
when
right.
I started looking at it in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
you know
Hmm.
late '70s, early '80s.
Yeah.
Uh, Old Mad, I think, is the really great Mad.
Yeah.
Then it was, in my teen years when I discovered underground comics
Hmm.
that the next real wave of inspiration came.
Hmm.
Stuff like Robert Crumb and
Yep.
Zap, really out there, just, no boundaries
No.
stuff.
It's kind of very much focusing in on the id almost.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And then Raw and the art cartooning and heavy metal,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
which was absolutely amazing back then.
Hmm.
Absolutely amazing.
A lot of well, that brings it back to the French stuff because they would have imported a lot of French comic book stuff like Mobius and things like that into
Yeah,
their work.
yeah.
So yeah. So
Nicole Clavalou, Kaza, just, yeah, absolutely an amazing time for comics. It was
mhm.
Short-lived, but
But what were your first comics? What were they like, if you remember them?
oh, they were very experimental. I didn't go to school for comics. I went to school for fine art, and my
Hmm.
all my early stuff is about deconstruction, collage, free association,
Yeah,
and a style
kind of fits in
gradually
with the
developed.
underground stuff.
Sorry.
Fits in with the underground stuff of the 70s and 60s.
Right.
That kind of
But I
free
was trying to
associates
find
everything.
something new. So it
Hmm.
was I was doing a lot of work for zines. This was early 90s. Just a lot of weird free associating stuff. And gradually out of that, a sort of style emerged. You
Yeah,
know, the style that was in Snake and Bacon.
yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose Snake and Bacon kind of became like a big thing for you, really, at one point, because that was adapted into a Adult Swim pilot and stuff like that. It was a mixture of live action and puppetry and animation. And was that your first television thing?
Snake and Bacon, actually, first of all, the book was not a success, definitely. It was kind of just dropped quietly
Mhm.
onto the market. And then I did some stuff for TV Funhouse
Yeah.
a
Oh,
year
that's
later,
yeah.
which was the Robert Smigel, Dino Stamatopoulos show,
That was
where
on
we
Comedy
animated a
Central.
couple of. What's that?
Was that on Comedy Central? It was a spin-off of
Yes, it was.
the SNL thing.
Yeah, yeah. The idea, I think, was that he would show some of his SNL cartoons and then do
Hmm.
some other material on top of that. But he's kind of such a maniac, and Dino is too, that they had to do all new material, and they had all these segments mixing animal puppets and live animals. I don't know if you've ever seen the show.
Yes, we should say for
Very.
people that maybe don't know, Robert Schmeigel is the man behind Triumph, the Insult Comic Dog, and Dino Stananopoulos, I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's written for things like Community, and he's been on Screenland there as well.
He's
Um,
Star Burns. If you've seen
Starburns,
Community, he's Star Burns.
that's it, that's it.
Um, yeah, he's pretty amazing too. But the show was just complete crazy,
Hmm.
enterprise, and it only lasted one season, but that
Yeah.
was fun.
Hmm.
And then I think the pilot was 2007.
Hmm.
So that was these two Daily Show writers, Scott Jacobson and Rich Blomquist, wanted to adapt the book, and they had a pilot all written, which combined some live action which they'd written, and then versions of the comics I'd written.
Yeah.
And I did one other animation thing right before that. I drew a cartoon for Saturday Night Live
Hmm.
that was a very quick experience, like all these are, 3 weeks. That was not. I wasn't the happiest with the result. I don't know if you
What
can find
was
it on
what was
iTunes.
the cartoon you wrote, Michael? What was the cartoon you wrote for
Well,
SNL?
it was with Robert Smigel, and it was really his ideas. It was called Big
Hmm.
Boobed Einstein. I think you can find
Yes.
it online.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
So I
and
was
then
asked to
a
get
few
that.
months after that was the Adult Swim pilot, which we had
Yeah.
to do in 6 weeks, which
Mm.
is yeah, also intense. But
Oh yeah, yeah.
then they sat on it for a year and a half, and then said they broadcast it, and they didn't want to do any more of it. And
Mm.
since then, they've expressed regret, or until recently when the entire personnel changed. But I went through so many times trying to get another pilot set up with them, and
Hmm.
it took years, and it just was so disheartening that I don't know. I'm not really a show business person.
Well, I suppose the other thing I want to talk about is Peter Serafinovich, which you've written, which I was amazed to find out. You wrote for the Peter Serafinovich TV show on BBC.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Now, how did you connect up with him?
Uh, uh, he wrote to me in 2005, I think,
Hmm.
2005, 2006. I just started doing Tales Designed to Thrizzle
Yes.
for Fantagraphics, and I got this letter and or an email, and he said, "I'd love to send you some of my work. I really enjoy
Hmm.
your stuff." And then he sent a DVD, and I recognized him then because
Yeah.
I watch a fair amount of British comedy, always have. Yeah, and so he was doing his own show. He was
Yeah.
doing all that O News stuff, which was really funny, and he was going to do his own show for the BBC. So they asked
Hmm.
if I wanted to write for it, and
Yeah.
originally Graham was the script editor, but then he left, and then it was Phil Quantick, and it was kind of a garbled experience. I wish I'd been able to go over there because I think
Yeah.
that's when it would have really worked. Because I had several of my ideas used, they just changed all the language.
Yeah.
So I did the idea of having Michael Caine do his acting workshop bit. That was from me, but then they
Yeah.
changed all the jokes in it.
Hmm.
And there were a few other things, but yeah, it was an interesting experience.
Yeah. He's spoken very highly of you though over the years. I mean, there was a clip I saw the other day where he was talking about you as a Comic Con, and he was just a big, huge fan of yours. And
He's a very sweet guy
mm,
and immensely talented.
oh yeah, voice of Darth Maul.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, he's very funny. I always think the voice of Darth Maul.
He did
But
voices. He did some voices on Snake and Bacon, the pilot,
all
and
right.
got to do some stuff with Bill Hader, I think, which
Mm-hmm.
was fun.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I suppose the other thing I wanted to ask you about was Tales to Drizzle. When did that happen? What was that? What was the origin of that?
I Fantagraphics said they would like me to do something, so I started doing it in 2005. It was a comic. After four issues, there was a hardcover collection, another four issues, another hardcover collection, and then I stopped.
Oh yeah, so I have to go back to you again. Actually, where did Snake and Bacon come from? What is the origin of Snake and Bacon? Was it just like free association, just drawing, or where does that come from?
Just maybe free associating on the idea of bad team ups, bad ridiculous partners.
Yeah.
There's some of the I think the language in the first couple of strips comes directly from there's a Jackie Chan, Danny Aiello movie where they're partners
Mm-hmm.
called The Protector.
All right.
And there is a bit where the police chief screams at them, you blew up half the damn harbor, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I guess the idea of this partnership where they're not actually that interesting and don't do anything, but people project onto them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was there's something really just brilliant about that. They're so like you could, yeah. I just love the idea that that was just the partnership, and I was like, I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, what is this? Like, how would you get this going? And I was like, no, actually, this is the kind of thing you should do for ages, because it was so like just so odd. Is your kind of sense of humor? What has inspired us? As you were saying, you like a lot of English stuff. It comes across, you get a sense of that actually. There's something really weird, not weird, but I mean, there's something very like surreal about some English humor. I'm thinking of Monty Python and Reeves and Mortimer and that kind of a thing. It's not all of them, it's not the whole shebang over there, but every now and again, you get these little pockets. Mighty Boosh as well, where
Lee and
it's like,
Herring.
what?
Lee and Herring
Who's
had a lot
that?
of. Oh, you
I
don't
don't
know
know that
Lee and
one.
Herring?
No, I don't know them.
Oh,
No.
Stuart Lee and Richard Herring. They
Oh
had
yes, yes. I
two
think I
TV
actually.
shows in the
Yeah.
90s that were absolutely brilliant. And they had BBC One radio shows. You can find all this stuff online, and it's
Yeah,
got some
yeah.
amazing bits.
I think I'd heard that he did a show like that, but I only ever seen Stuart Lee stand up. And I remember he did a stand up bit that was so like specific to me. I was like, finally, someone's talking about this. And what he was talking about was a box of the Planet of the Apes. And I was like, yes, Lee gets it because those films were crap, and I did get ripped off. But what do you think? Was it the English stuff or was it some other stuff? Do you think that you had seen growing up that has kind of influenced your sense of humor?
English stuff was definitely big.
Hmm.
First show I really was laughing at was The Goodies,
Hmm.
but then Monty Python soon after. And I think one of the things that's interesting about Monty Python is that people remember the sketches,
Hmm.
fine. But what I really found intriguing was the European surrealism. I think that there was a lot of surrealism in Europe, and it actually
Yeah.
came over in Monty Python. So the
Hmm.
episodes that are the most disconnected, where it's them kind of wandering through landscapes, repeating the same lines over and over. Maybe the deja vu episode is the one I'm thinking the most of, where
Hmm.
the same elements are just recurring in a landscape just arbitrarily.
Hmm.
And yeah, that had a strong impact. And then there was the American show SCTV, which
Oh yeah.
was a really amazing deconstruction and referentiality.
Yeah.
And one of the things I hate about what our culture has become in the last 20 years, especially, is that referentiality is so frowned on now. If you're not making a point of referencing something and explaining it, you're not
Yeah.
allowed to have any referentiality because no one is expected to have any memory whatsoever. And
Oh, okay.
I think it's kind of contributed to the current situation where no one has any context or awareness of how things happen, or what what you can actually expect in life. given some perspective of 30 to 40 years.
Hmm. I was going to go back to the goodies because the goodies was the show I used to watch as well. That was a brilliant. There was something so brilliant. Do you know what that actually reminds me of a lot of is Pee Wee's Playhouse,
Pee Wee's Playhouse, I was thinking
whereas
of,
it
yeah.
could easily run as a kids thing. It's perfectly suitable, but there's that hint of irony. You're like, we know this is dumb, kind of a thing to it. You know that added to it as well. And I think I don't know if the actor who played Pee Wee is gone on my head now. Paul Rubens. If he had seen the goodies or not, I don't know. But there definitely is a correlation between the two. I think they'd seen like kids media and
They
went,
did. They all did great books too. The Goodies did several books which are quite good comedy books,
hmm,
like quite well thought out and laid out. And Monty Python, of course, did several
yeah.
comedy books which are just beautifully crafted. And at times, I think pouring withering scorn on the Goodies, who they obviously looked,
Well,
looked
there's
down on.
there's a clip with John Cleese in the goodies where he's like he shouts to the camera, kids show," something like that, kind of, But I
But
mean,
Eric
that's
Idle, I think Eric Idle was most responsible for the books.
oh,
So
that makes sense.
yeah, I
Yeah,
was want to throw that up in his defense.
yeah. Well, I suppose that makes sense because it says here on Wikipedia anyway. Let me know if this is wrong. It says you spent part of your childhood in England. I'm guessing
Yeah, I did.
that's.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
okay. So that's where
absolutely.
you would have
We
seen
were
all
there
this stuff.
from 73 to 75,
Hmm.
from when I was 7 to when I was 9. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So
no, that was
was
a powerful experience.
so would the Python stuff and all that stuff was that have been shown it on PBS then? Is that where you would have seen all that stuff in
I
SCTV or
saw
anything
it
like that?
a couple of years later on PBS. I think I saw Doctor Who, which I absolutely loved right away,
Yeah,
and
me too.
that stayed with me.
Yeah.
But yeah, they weren't on PBS until a couple of years later. I wouldn't have seen them then.
Hmm.
But there was also the brilliant British children's shows, which then, when my child was the right age, I found and showed him again because
Yeah.
I think they're the best, some of the best children's programming ever done. When I realized that those, Captain Pugwash, shows like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
Mary Mungo and Midge, that a lot
Yeah.
of those are just cut paper with one person doing the voice.
I love
They're
that. There's
actually
something about that. Yeah.
animation as film theater, which is
Yeah.
really interesting.
It's very, very weird. They used to show them on TV over here as well, on some digital channel. And I was like, this is just so it's like you could if you didn't have the theme songs, you go, this is a nice piece of art.
Yeah,
Pugwash is different though. Pugwash is like something you'd find in a weird magazine or something. Very,
it's
very
really
odd,
strange.
very
Yeah.
strange. I don't you see people always go, all right, so there's Roger the cabin boy and stuff like that. And you go, did they know or was it a coincidence? It's very odd because it's not too obvious, but it's just obvious enough. People go, maybe it was a joke, maybe it wasn't a joke. I don't know. It's very, very odd. But there's humor already in it. Roger the cabin boy, just fantastic stuff. There
Right.
you go.
Oh, Roger Melly had a funny routine about that in Viz.
Yeah.
Claims there's a cabin boy named.
Don't
Hmm.
think I will let that on the air. But that was good. So yeah, so you definitely do get that kind of. I can see why Peter Serafinovich asked you to be on his show because you do get a sense of that kind of humor through your comics as well too. It's you get a sense of the American stuff, but also you get a kind of blending of the two. But I suppose that's just the way it happens. Um,
Yeah, there's some sketches I wrote for him. I still wish he'd do, or ideas for sketches.
mhm.
I had an idea for a show called Britain's Next Prince, where they're competing to be the next member of the royal family, which I think would have been hilarious.
Sounds good. Um, it says here. I want to know what this is about. It says here pseudonyms P. Reeves. What's P.
Uh,
Reeves?
yeah, I was using that for comics in the very early
All right.
years, early 90s.
Mhm.
Just another kind of free associating affectation. I kind of
All
wish
right.
I kept it actually, but it's a cool name. It's a cooler name
You could always bring it
than
back.
my own name. Yeah.
No, Michael Kupperman's good, I think.
Yeah.
But
Not awkward.
I think you could bring back P. Reeves or something else. So writing and things like that. Where do you start? Do you just sit down with a blank piece of paper, or do you see something on TV and you go, "There's an idea"? or where
Well, of
does
course,
this?
a lot of
What's
stuff
the
I've done up till
process?
now is very short pieces.
Okay.
So it's just you collect, impressions, you collect ideas, you scribble
Hmm.
them down.
Yeah.
Um, and recently I've, been writing longer pieces, and that's a completely different thing,
Mm.
where, you have to construct a whole narrative, and perhaps you only have an idea of a few high points, or you have a general jumping off point. Um, I just, the thing I'm working on right now is a graphic novel about a movie star who wakes up 1,000 years in the future, where he's drafted to be an undercover cop because he's now the most anonymous person instead of the most famous person. And
Mm.
I kind of jumped in with this premise, but then as I was writing it, what I found myself drawn to was not situations where there were, criminals and criminal behavior and confrontations, but situations where he kind of wanders through finding himself asking the question, "What is crime? Um,
Oh,
where is the crime? What is crime now? I don't even know." And
yeah.
then kind of confronting the question of, well, what is crime, and where is it? And it actually evolved into a kind of more optimistic version of the future where crime is really a human problem, and the humans that do it have left. So, but the idea evolved. What if humans are the only people who have that dichotomy within themselves, where they feel the need to create that definition of human
Hmm.
activity, of their own
Sounds
activity?
good.
You
Sounds
know,
good.
maybe we're the only people, maybe we're the only species in the universe who would have an idea of crime,
Hmm.
or other, parts of our own character that we find unacceptable.
So do you
This
mean
odd dichotomy that we
when you
create.
mean what is crime? Do you mean like what we would consider like a petty crime or something, or do you mean like uh you've broken the law, but the law makes no sense and no one actually would get hurt by it, so who would care, kind of a thing? Or do you mean like that other species just wouldn't care?
Well, a crime, I think, specifically is the idea that there are things in our own character that are unacceptable,
Okay.
um, and that we have to police. So I think it's possible that other species, excuse me, would
Hmm.
have more of an idea of things being an administrative problem or a social
Okay.
work problem instead of a criminal problem,
Right.
and that maybe the dichotomy itself is what creates activity that is defined as crime.
Hmm.
Because when you look at the motives for crime, there's want,
Yeah.
there's criminal mischief, malevolence.
Hmm.
Um, what if those were excised more, and what would actually be crime? You know.
Hmm. You just you're allowed to rob a pack of sweets. You're just allowed once. Once you're allowed to do it. And that's it. That's I think the purge should be that. It should have been that. It should be like murder. No one's gonna murder. If crime was free, if crime was legal, I wouldn't murder. I just download films. That's what I would do.
Yeah. Well,
I never understood
don't you
that.
already?
No, I how dare you? No, but
I mean,
so
I think crime is something that arises. The idea of crime is something that arises possibly because of a dichotomy in our society where you have to create a reality where some people are inside the boundaries and other people are out, and those people who are outside the boundaries have to be condemned. And
mhm.
maybe no one else has that.
Crime comes up a few times actually in your work. I mean, Snake and Bacon were trying to
Oh,
solve
sure,
crimes too.
sure.
I mean,
The
it
idea of crime.
sounds silly, but that they were in police. So, is there something about crime and crime solving and the authority thing? Because Snake and Bacon aren't exactly in. They're not breaking against it, but they're not exactly helping the situation either with
Well, of
the
course, the idea of
authoritative
crime is
figures.
one of the prime motivators of narrative entertainment. So,
Oh yeah, of course.
uh,
But so but I mean, no, but did you ever really think about where Snake and Bacon really were in the society? Sounds a bit silly, really. But I mean, in the greater scheme, was there something else in your back of your mind if you really go, what was I trying to say with that? What was in the back of my mind? What was going on there? What was going on there with that? You know,
yeah, I'm
in
not
relation
sure.
with this one, I mean, you
It
know.
might be about the creative process itself. I mean, when I started to look into my father's story, I did realize I'd been kind of dropping bits of it into my own work without really thinking about it much.
Hmm.
Um, So it's possible.
Michael, thank you so much for joining me today. And as we say, you can be found on Emma Kupperman at Twitter. You've got your Patreon, and do get all his books because they're all fantastic. If you want just a good, hard laugh, and you laugh until you can't laugh anymore, and then you laugh some more.
Thanks, Michael.